movement, gay and lesbian rights movement. This is our most recent immigration movement. There's been several. And this is Occupy Wall Street. So these are the big questions of who counts in this society, which I assume that that's what education is struggling to answer, or helping us participate in. What does it mean to be American? What does it mean to be included in U.S. society through U.S. education and art education? And here we are taking it all in, right? All those histories, all those movements, participating in it, spitting it back, ingesting it. So what does it look like in the art room? I'm going to do also a little bit of my history as a teacher as part of our look at some of these historical movements. So a little bit of my history. This is 10 years ago in a first grade classroom with a student named Kaeli. You can read about this in The Light in Their Eyes. This is the second edition of this book by Sonia Nieto, who's my mentor and advisor for my doctoral work. So I came into my art room one day. It was a K-6 school where I taught 583 kids in the school, 23 classrooms. And there was a note in my message box that said, "Dear Ms. Bode, please help. My mom was speaking to me about white people leaving brown and black people out of books. Bye, Kaeli. Love, Kaeli." So I knew this was important. I had the message box because it's hard, right, when you have 583 kids to make sure you have contact with them, authentic contact with them all the time. So I went running down the hall to her classroom teacher before school was about to start, so she would know that I received her message, and I sent her a message back that said, "Dear Kaeli, I'm glad you asked for help. This is a problem that we need to help each other with. We need to ask our friends and teachers and families for help so we can work together. I think we should work on this problem in art class." So Kaeli and I met during a recess period, and we found a lot of images from books and calendars and other visual cultural resources. This was in 1999. And lots of images that Kaeli thought would be good to have in a book, to make the book more diverse. And I asked her some questions about it, which I'm sure you would have questions if you read her note, right? I said, what makes you ask this, Kaeli? Was there a special book you and your mom were talking about, or was it all books? You know, to work on this in art class, let's put it in a context. And she said, "Oh, I have a book right here." Pulls it out of her backpack, and it's a book called My Body. Now, this was 1999. This was not 1952, okay? This was a Random House book. This was not like some obscure book from some country where there's no brown people. This was a book that was asserted to be a science book for first grade classrooms. And she showed me quite eloquently her statement of the problem of her research, which was, if you look on page 1, 2, 3, 4, there are no brown people. Till you get to page 35, and there's a whole, that's where all the brown people get to be, on the page about diversity. I think maybe on page 21, that girl might be brown. They're just showing her arm. Okay? This is very problematic. Kaeli's right, of course. And we made a list of people who might be able to help us, the school librarian, all of our peers, our classroom teacher, the publisher. We made a long list. And so Kaeli set out to present her statement of the problem in art class to her first grade friends. They were outraged and developed a social action plan to let the publisher know what they thought their book should look like. And developed a lot of paintings. We spent a lot of time doing a lot of color theory, discussing skin color, and the first grade teacher helped us write letters, and we wrote things like, 1998, excuse me. "Dear publisher, could you put lots of white and black people?" Thank you, from Nick A. "Dear publisher, please equalize African American, Asian, Chinese, Japanese, European, American, Puerto Rican. Wow. Sincerely, Caroline." First grade. "Dear publisher, don't leave dark skin out of books because it's not fair." In case you wanted to know, we are studying punctuation. No, honey, it's an explanation. That's Scott's expertise, punctuation. He became our local punctuation expert. make your books fair, and if you don't, me and my family will never buy or read your unfair books. We want fairness from Erica.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, Erica? What's that called? We have a word for that. We know all about it because we know about Rosa Parks. What's that called? It's called the boycott, right? So now we're transferring prior knowledge to this. And we put together a package of letters and artwork and sent it off to the publisher. We didn't have really great results. We got like a little thank you for your interest kind of thing. However, we analyzed every bookshelf in our school library and every book as sources of visual culture in our lives. And we worked with every teacher in the school, and we made presentations at the town library about all of this. And when we were working on this, at one point, Joey came up to me. He said, "Ms. Bode, you left out the white people." This was on the big bulletin board we made from lots of different examples of people who could be included in the books. And I said, "Joey, what makes you say that?" And he said, "I'm saying it because there's no white people on the board." Because I'm 6, and this is how I understand my world. So I gave Joey a clipboard. You have to have a clipboard in your classroom, right? It gives people power. It's a really important symbol of power. In the classroom, I gave him a clipboard and a pencil, and I asked him to go make a chart of the different kinds of races, or different kinds of people, or different cultural groups, or however he understood that white people were left out, so that we could do a mathematical analysis. And he came back to me. Oh, by the way, he stayed in art class. He asked, it's never happened in his life or ever since, to stay in recess and do it. Stayed through math, which he was happy to do because it was a mathematical problem, and science. And by the end of the day, he came to me with a chart, many pages long, and he said, "There are white people, and I think there's equal parts, equal numbers." And he had very elaborate charts of all of this. And he had a couple implications and findings from his research. One of which was, it's hard to know what racial group somebody identifies as without asking them. He figured that out. The phenotype isn't everything. Skin color isn't everything. So we made words of, he would say, you can't always tell by what their facial features are. I said, okay, that's called phenotype. Let's make a vocabulary list. You can't always tell by skin color. Okay, that's what we've called racial groups, even though we know race doesn't exist, racism does. Okay, let's make that list. And I said, why do you think you came to me with that? And he said, because I'm used to seeing more of them. Oh, that's called dominant group perspective. Right? You can say macaroni and cheese, you can say dominant group perspective. And we did. We learned how to say that. Okay, so, and you can, more importantly, know what it means, right? Because Joey's teaching you. Okay, meanwhile, Kaeli's not done. She goes home and analyzes her video collection. So here's our mathematical skills. In case anybody's accusing you of not meeting your standards while you're doing social justice education. Okay, here it is. Diversity, good. Kaeli's video observations. Here's her math graph, which she's learning about. We could argue with her decisions, but we won't right now. So, okay, good. Under good, Pocahontas, Hunchback, Kids for Character, the Charger, Jungle Book, Homeward Bound, Free Willy. Could be better. That's down here. They don't get anything colored. Could be better. We got a couple of arrows to that. Cinderella, Snow White, Alice in Wonderland. Oh, I think we have a budding feminist. Candy something? Candyland? I don't know. Oh, that's part of Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland. Mary Poppins, Oliver and Company, Aristocrats, Heidi, Aristocrats, Toy Stories, Aristocats. Yeah. Wonder Woman Dalmatians. Okay. So this is what I call the unleashing of yes. When we say yes to a first grader, yes, you have something to say. Yes, you have knowledge. Yes, we will assist you. Right? Yes, this is part of our visual world. Yes, it's relevant to art class. Yes, yes, yes. This is what happens. Kaeli's in her first year of college now. We're doing a research project. Okay. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. Democracy. What is education for? What is the role of art education? So these first graders learned about full active participation in democratic society. And even though they didn't get really big results from the publisher, they got really big results from their peers. And they knew about first graders. Oh, it's at 1:30? Okay. They knew about first graders in the other, I was told I could go till 2 because of the little announcements. Thank you. They knew about first graders in a neighboring school. Has anyone been to Massachusetts and seen our turnpike signs? We have a sign with a pilgrim's hat on it. Have you ever been through there? That sign that's on every turnpike sign in Massachusetts, there's a lot of them, used to be a pilgrim's hat with an arrow going through it. Can you believe it? And the first graders in the other school were studying Native Americans and stereotypes. And they were bringing in, Land O'Lakes butter boxes and images from cartoons. And one kid brought in a picture of the turnpike sign. And those first graders wrote to the Turnpike Authority and invited them to come to their class to learn their lesson. And every sign in the state of Massachusetts was changed. Wow, right? Wow, first grade. Okay, Patriots, first grade Patriots. Okay, fast forward 10 years, I find myself as a higher ed, whatever that means, I always wondered when I was in a K through 12 system. Higher ed, so in college, teaching graduate students about becoming art teachers. And Brittany and Charlotte and Elise are teaching in Boston Renaissance School, which is an all African American and Latino school, really great school in Boston. 3 full-time art teachers, right? Isn't that awesome? And they take the train from downtown up to my seminar once a week and are always talking about their day. And they come in one day and they're like, okay, Patty, we have to ask you. The kids keep asking us this question over and over and over again, and we don't know how to answer. And they're asking us, Ms., why are your eyes blue? And I was like, oh, it's awesome. It's such a great anti-racist moment. It's such an opportunity. So what did you say? Well, we said, because my mom's eyes are blue. Okay, that's true, and it's not bad, but it's not enough. Right? It's not enough, because this is race talk. What Micah Pollock, who wrote Color View and Everyday Anti-Racism, what she calls race talk. This is an opportunity to embrace and bring race talk into the classroom in this unpacked, uncharged way, sort of like we did with Kaeli, right? It was charged, but we unpacked it and made it into an art lesson. So Charlotte takes it up. And there's Charlotte with her kids. She's working on the Romare Bearden Boston Renaissance School mural, something we've probably seen before, similar things, right? We all love Romare Bearden, who wouldn't? And she notices that when she's teaching them about, his collages of faces, and they're working on their collages, and she's doing her artful thinking and her visual thinking strategies and all these great inquiry-based approaches, that when she gets to here's the first grade examples down here, Romare Bearden up here, they get to their magazines that they're mostly filled with white people. And so she makes a decision and says, put this project away. We're not going to do it today. And Charlotte gets on her bicycle and rides all over Boston and goes to every single barbershop and beauty salon and 7-Eleven and libraries. Libraries give away a lot of magazines. They don't keep them forever, these days. And brings in bicycle loads after bicycle load of magazines to this school until she's satisfied that she can offer her kids. Now, this seems like a really simple thing, right? It seems like a gimme, like shouldn't we all do that? But we don't. Right? Charlotte did it. So these are the examples, the little things we do every day that turn into big things. So on top of that, Charlotte takes up the phenotype discussion. And they talk about the development of the human being and human phenotype as an animal adaptation, the way turtles have developed their shells, and the giraffe has a long neck, and we all have different skin colors based on where our ancestors developed on the globe hundreds of thousands of years ago, and different textures of hair, and different sized lips, and different sized nostrils, depending on if the air had to be warmed or if there was already humid air when the human animal was developing. And she takes it up